When her little blonde daughter tugged her sleeve and whispered, "Mummy, he needs our help," the young brown-skinned mother never imagined that stepping into danger that night would change both their lives forever. Hello family, if you're ready for the full story, make sure you hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Tomorrow, I've got another story that will blow your mind, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Now let's dive in. The rain had only just stopped when Amara pushed the heavy glass door of the cafe open, guiding her little girl inside. Her daughter, Lily, bounced ahead on her small legs, her blonde hair catching the glow of the overhead lamps like strands of sunlight against the storm-darkened streets outside. Amara's hand lingered on the door a second longer, as though she needed the weight of it to hold her together. Life had been teaching her resilience since the day Lily was born. A brown-skinned single mother in her mid-20s, Amara often wore her strength like armor, stitched together with determination and sleepless nights. But strength was a tricky mask. It fooled the world into thinking she never faltered, when in truth, she sometimes ached for someone to notice the shadows behind her eyes. "Mommy, can we get hot chocolate?" Lily chirped, already knowing the answer but hopeful anyway. Amara smiled faintly. "One hot chocolate. And maybe a muffin we can share." The cafe wasn't crowded, but the chatter of late diners hummed around them. Amara guided Lily to a corner booth, the one place where she felt safest, half hidden, watching others without being fully seen. She brushed the damp curls from her daughter's forehead and pressed a kiss there. It was in moments like this she remembered how every choice she made had to matter. For Lily. Always for Lily. Across town, Ethan sat alone at a table by the window, scribbling something in a worn notebook. The storm outside mirrored the one inside his chest. He didn't notice Amara or Lily yet. He didn't notice much at all these days, truth be told. His past carried weight. Regrets that clung like wet clothes. Failures that left him empty-handed. He had come to this cafe for warmth, nothing more. But fate rarely announces itself. It simply waits, patient, ready to ambush. Amara stirred the hot chocolate when it arrived, her thoughts wandering. She often wondered if other mothers carried this same quiet loneliness, this invisible ache of having no one to lean on. Lily was her joy, her light, but when night fell and her daughter slept, silence became her fiercest companion. Lily noticed her mother drifting. She always noticed. Children had a way of catching what adults tried to hide. "Mommy," she whispered, tugging at Amara's sleeve. "That man, he looks sad." Amara followed Lily's gaze. Her daughter was pointing toward the man by the window, Ethan, his shoulders slouched, his eyes staring into a cup of untouched coffee. Amara's first instinct was to shush her daughter, to tell her not to stare. But Lily's innocence didn't allow for silence. Before Amara could answer, the cafe door banged open. Two men stormed in, loud, rough, their presence instantly disturbing the fragile peace of the room. Ethan froze when he saw them. The cafe's chatter stilled. Something unspoken passed between the men and Ethan. Tension crackled in the air like electricity. "Mommy," Lily's voice trembled now, her little fingers clutching Amara's arm. "They're scary." Amara's pulse quickened. She wanted to scoop her daughter up, to leave, to disappear before trouble reached them. But in the next moment, the men descended on Ethan, shoving his chair, yanking him up by his collar. The sound of glass shattering jolted the room. "Mummy, he needs our help." Lily's plea broke through Amara's fear like a blade. Every instinct screamed for her to stay out of it, to protect her child, to pretend none of this was her battle. Yet Amara looked into her daughter's wide blue eyes, saw the trust there, the belief that her mother could make the world safer. And suddenly, walking away felt like betrayal, not just of the man being attacked, but of the values she wanted to raise Lily with. Amara rose to her feet. Her voice, firm but shaking, carried across the cafe. Enough. Let him go. Heads turned. The attackers sneered at her, unimpressed. Ethan's lip was bleeding now, his notebook lying torn on the floor. The room held its breath. Amara stepped closer, shielding Lily with her body while never breaking eye contact with the men. "You don't want to do this here," she said, her tone low but steady. The taller man barked a laugh. "And who's gonna stop us?" "You." Lily's small voice piped up from behind Amara's skirt, trembling yet brave. "Please don't hurt him." Something shifted in the room. The child's plea pierced through bravado, through cruelty, through fear itself. Even Ethan's eyes widened, this stranger and her daughter, standing between him and danger. And though Amara's heart pounded in her ears, she stood her ground. Because sometimes, the most fragile people were the ones holding everything together. If you're feeling the weight of this moment, ask yourself, would you have stepped up or looked away? Share your answer in the comments, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Don't just watch, be part of the family that never looks away. The cafe staff scrambled to call the police, voices hushed, movements frantic. The attackers, realizing they'd drawn too much attention, shoved Ethan one last time and bolted out into the rain. Silence followed them out. Shaken diners slowly resumed breathing. Ethan collapsed back into his chair, wiping blood from his mouth, dazed. Amara crouched to meet Lily's eyes, brushing her daughter's hair back with trembling fingers. "You okay, baby?" Lily nodded, then glanced at Ethan. "Is he okay?" Amara turned to look at the man they had just saved. For reasons she couldn't explain, something inside her shifted too. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. The cafe had fallen quiet after the men stormed out, though the echoes of their rage still lingered in the air. Cups clinked nervously, chairs creaked as customers whispered their disbelief. Yet all Amara could focus on was the sound of Lily's shallow breathing, her little chest rising and falling too quickly. "Sweetheart, it's okay," Amara whispered, pulling Lily into her lap. She pressed her cheek to her daughter's soft blonde hair, inhaling the faint scent of shampoo mixed with chocolate. "It's over now." But even as she said it, Amara knew it wasn't over. Not really. Because when she glanced toward the corner table, she saw Ethan hunched forward, his body trembling with exhaustion and something deeper, shame. Blood stained his lower lip, and his hands shook as he fumbled for the torn notebook on the floor. Amara's instincts, part mother, part woman, part human being, nudged her forward. She guided Lily gently to the booth and whispered, "Stay right here, baby. Mommy's just going to check on him." Lily's blue eyes brimmed with worry. "Be careful, Mommy." Amara gave a small reassuring nod and crossed the cafe floor. Up close, Ethan seemed even more broken than she'd first thought. His dark hair hung loose, damp from the rain, his shirt wrinkled, his breathing ragged. He looked up at her when she approached, and for a moment his gaze faltered, not used to kindness directed his way. "You all right?" Amara asked softly. He gave a humorless laugh that turned into a wince. "Do I look all right?" His voice carried both sarcasm and pain, as if one was his shield against the other. Amara tilted her head, unfazed. "No. You look like someone who's pretending to be fine." That made him pause. He blinked, as if no one had ever said it out loud before. Then he pressed a napkin to his lip, muttering, I didn't ask for your help. No, she agreed quietly. But my daughter did. And I couldn't ignore her. At that, Ethan's eyes flickered toward Lily, who sat watching them anxiously from the booth, her small hands clasped in front of her chest like a silent prayer. The sight seemed to undo something in him. She shouldn't have seen that, he said hoarsely, guilt lacing his tone. Kids shouldn't witness people like me dragging trouble in. Amara folded her arms. Don't blame yourself for what those men chose to do. Whatever your story is, you didn't deserve that. He let out a shaky breath. You don't know me. Maybe not, she said evenly. But I know what it's like to be cornered. To feel powerless. And I know the look of someone who's been carrying too much alone. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not suffocating. It was the kind of silence that asked questions without speaking them. Back at the booth, Lily called out softly, "Mommy, is he okay now?" Amara glanced over her shoulder and gave her daughter a small nod. Then she turned back to Ethan. "What's your name?" He hesitated. "Ethan." "Ethan," she repeated, as if testing the weight of it. "Well, Ethan, I'm Amara. And that's Lily." Ethan gave the faintest nod in Lily's direction. "She's brave. Braver than most adults." Amara smiled faintly. "She's my heart." Ethan swallowed hard. He wanted to say something, gratitude maybe, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead he muttered, "Thanks. For whatever that was." "Saving you." Amara teased gently. "You're welcome." The corner of his mouth twitched, almost a smile, but quickly collapsed into weariness. The police arrived minutes later, taking hurried statements from the shaken staff. Ethan gave only brief answers, unwilling or unable to share details. When they pressed further, Amara noticed how his jaw tightened, how his fingers drummed restlessly on the table. Whatever trouble those men represented, Ethan clearly wasn't ready to let it out. Still, when the officers left and the cafe began to empty, Ethan remained in his seat, staring at the rain streaking down the glass. Amara knew she should gather Lily and head home. She had work in the morning, bills stacked on the counter, a life that didn't leave room for strange men with haunted eyes. And yet, something about walking away from him felt wrong. "Do you have someone to call?" she asked gently. Ethan shook his head. "No one." "Someplace safe to go tonight?" He hesitated. "I'll figure it out." It wasn't an answer. It was a wall. But Amara had learned that walls often hid deep wounds. Right here, pause and ask yourself, if you were in Amara's shoes, would you walk away from Ethan, or stay, even when it makes no sense? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you're only watching without subscribing, you're missing the chance to be part of stories that ask the questions life doesn't. Amara exhaled slowly, her heart pulling in two directions. Logic told her this wasn't her responsibility. But Lily's soft whisper from earlier echoed in her memory, "Mummy, he needs our help." She crouched beside Ethan once more. "Look, I don't know what your situation is. But you can't sit here all night. If you want, I can give you a ride. Just a ride." Ethan looked at her like she'd just offered him a foreign concept. "Trust." "You don't even know me," he said again, but this time his voice cracked. "Maybe not," she replied. "But I know what it's like to wish someone would care enough to ask." Their eyes held, hers steady, his guarded but wavering. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt the smallest thread of connection tugging at the loneliness he thought would drown him forever. Lily skipped up beside them, her little hand slipping into Ethan's larger, trembling one. "Don't be sad," she said simply. "Mommy says everybody deserves help sometimes." Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to protest, to retreat into his pain, but her innocent gaze left him no escape. He only nodded, pressing his lips together as though the act of speaking would unravel him. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the streets washed clean under a pale sun. Amara pulled open the curtains, letting light spill into the apartment, chasing away the heaviness that had hung there for days. Lily was already bouncing around in her pajamas, her boundless energy demanding attention. "Can we go to the park today, Mommy? Please?" Amara glanced at Ethan, who sat at the table with his ever-present notebook, nursing a cup of coffee like it was both shield and lifeline. He looked exhausted, but there was a softness in his eyes she hadn't seen before. "The park," Amara repeated, arching a brow. "It's muddy after the rain." "Puddles," Lily squealed, as though that solved everything. Ethan chuckled under his breath, the sound surprising both himself and Amara. "She's got a point." Amara smirked. "Oh, so you're taking her side now?" He lifted his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, I'm just an observer here. But puddles do seem important business." Lily gasped dramatically. "See, Mommy. Even Ethan knows." Amara rolled her eyes but couldn't fight the smile tugging at her lips. "Fine. Puddles it is." The park was quiet, damp earth releasing the sweet scent of rain. Lily ran ahead, her boots splashing joyfully through puddles, her laughter echoing across the playground. Amara and Ethan followed at a slower pace. She folded her arms, watching her daughter with fond exasperation. "She's going to come back soaked." "Worth it," Ethan murmured, eyes following Lily with a tenderness he didn't mean to show. Amara noticed. "You're good with her." He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know about that. Kids usually don't like me." "Well, she does," Amara said firmly. "And Lily's judgment? It's better than most." Their eyes met for a moment, unspoken meaning hanging in the space between them. At the swings, Lily demanded Ethan push her. He hesitated, then gave in, his large hand steadying the chains as she squealed with delight. "Higher!" she cried, her blonde hair streaming behind her. "Don't blame me if she launches into orbit," Ethan muttered. Amara laughed, really laughed, the sound bubbling up in a way she hadn't felt in years. Ethan glanced at her, surprised by how much he liked the sound. His jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. Instead, he sat heavily on the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Amara watched him for a moment, then wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. His body stiffened at the unexpected kindness, but he didn't push it away. "Good night, Ethan," she said softly, retreating toward her room. He didn't answer, but as she closed the door, she heard the faintest whisper escape him, so quiet she wasn't sure it was real. "Good night." The next morning, resistance took another form. Ethan was gone. The blanket folded neatly on the couch, the notebook missing, the air in the apartment heavy with absence. Amara's heart sank. She hadn't expected him to stay forever, but the empty space left behind still ached. "Where's the man, Mommy?" Lily asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Amara crouched beside her daughter. "He had to go." But he didn't even say goodbye. The disappointment in her daughter's voice cut deeper than Amara expected. She forced a smile. Maybe he'll come back someday. But in her chest, she doubted it. Meanwhile, Ethan walked the wet streets aimlessly, the notebook clutched tightly in his hand. Shame gnawed at him. He hated how much he'd wanted to stay. How Lily's innocent kindness had slipped past his defenses. How Amara's steady gaze had felt like something he didn't deserve. He told himself leaving was the right choice, that they were better off without him. People like him carried shadows, and shadows spread. Yet every step he took felt heavier, as though some unseen thread tugged him back toward that little apartment, toward the warmth he didn't know how to accept. That night, Amara sat on the couch after Lily had gone to bed, staring at the empty space where Ethan had slept. She told herself it didn't matter, that she had her daughter, her job, her responsibilities. But something about his absence gnawed at her. Why did it matter? Why did the echo of his broken voice linger in her ears? If you were Ethan, ashamed, afraid, running from kindness, would you have left or stayed? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, ask yourself this: why keep leaving these stories unfinished when you could stay with us through every chapter? Days passed. Amara returned to her routine, but she couldn't shake the image of Ethan's haunted eyes. Lily asked about him often, her innocent curiosity carrying a weight Amara didn't know how to answer. And somewhere in the city, Ethan wrestled with his own storm, resisting the pull of something that felt dangerously close to hope. He told himself he was protecting them by staying away. But in truth, he was only protecting himself from the risk of being needed. And resistance, no matter how strong, has a way of breaking when fate decides otherwise. The grocery store wasn't Amara's favorite place. Between juggling Lily's questions in every aisle and trying to stretch her paycheck far enough to cover the week, it often felt less like shopping and more like survival. Still, Saturday mornings had become routine: cereal, milk, fruit, and one small treat Lily got to pick. Lily skipped beside her cart, humming softly as she studied the shelves with wide eyes. "Mommy, can I get sprinkles for pancakes this time?" Amara smiled tiredly. "Sprinkles aren't breakfast." "They can be." Lily insisted, her giggle bubbling up like sunshine. Amara reached out to ruffle her daughter's blonde hair, but the moment was broken when Lily suddenly froze mid-step, her smile vanishing. "Mommy," she whispered, pointing across the aisle. Amara followed her gaze. There he was. Ethan. He stood near the bread display, shoulders hunched, a half-empty basket dangling from his hand. He looked thinner than she remembered, as though even the days since he left had carved more hollows into his face. He noticed them at almost the same moment. His eyes widened briefly before flicking away, as if he'd been caught somewhere he shouldn't be. Amara's stomach tightened. Part of her wanted to march over and demand why he'd slipped away without a word. Another part wanted to steer Lily in the opposite direction and protect the fragile bubble of stability she'd built. But Lily had no such hesitation. She bolted down the aisle, her little shoes tapping against the linoleum. "Ethan," she called, her voice carrying pure delight. Ethan stiffened, caught between retreat and surrender. When Lily wrapped her small arms around his leg, he froze, then slowly lowered his basket to rest a trembling hand on her back. "Hey kid," he muttered, voice rough. "Didn't think I'd see you again." Amara reached them moments later, her expression unreadable. "Seems you disappeared without goodbye." Ethan's jaw flexed. "I thought it was better that way." "For who?" Amara asked quietly. He didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. They stood there in the aisle, the hum of the store moving around them like they were ghosts invisible to everyone else. Lily tugged Ethan's hand, beaming. "Mommy said you didn't have anyone. But now you have us." "Lily," Amara warned gently, but her daughter only grinned wider. Ethan looked stricken, as though the innocence of her words cut deeper than the fists of the men who had attacked him. He crouched to Lily's level, his dark eyes shadowed. "You don't even know me, kiddo." Lily shrugged. "I don't need to. You're nice." A humorless chuckle slipped from him. "You've got bad judgment." But his hand lingered in hers, betraying the part of him that didn't want to pull away. By the time they reached checkout, fate played its cruel trick. Amara swiped her card, only for the screen to flash declined. Heat rushed to her cheeks as she tried again, her heart sinking when the same result appeared. She fumbled for her phone, pretending to scroll through her balance, though she already knew. The rent draft had cleared early. She was short. "Ma'am," the cashier prompted. Lily clutched her hand, whispering, "Mommy." Before Amara could speak, Ethan stepped forward, placing a crumpled set of bills on the counter. "I got it." Amara spun toward him, bristling. "No. You don't." "Let me," he said firmly, almost desperate. "Please." Her pride screamed in protest, but Lily's hopeful eyes tipped the scale. Amara exhaled slowly, shoulders sagging. "Fine. But you're taking the bread and sprinkles." For the first time, a faint smile ghosted across Ethan's lips. Outside, rain had started again, soft but steady. Amara loaded the groceries into her car while Ethan hovered nearby, unsure whether to stay or walk away. Lily solved the dilemma by tugging his sleeve. "Come eat pancakes with us," she demanded sweetly. Ethan froze. His gaze darted to Amara, searching for permission he wasn't sure he deserved. Amara hesitated, the war inside her playing out in silence. Bringing him into her home once had been a risk. Inviting him back again, was it foolish? Dangerous? Or was it exactly what he needed, and what deep down she needed too? Finally, she sighed. "One meal. That's it." Ethan's throat bobbed. "I don't want to intrude." "You already paid for sprinkles," Amara replied. "Might as well eat some." Their apartment smelled like butter and sugar within the hour. Lily sat at the table, proudly dumping sprinkles over her pancake tower, while Amara flipped the last batch on the stove. Ethan sat stiffly in a chair, hands clasped, as though afraid to relax. "You cook like you've done this 1,000 times," he murmured. Amara glanced at him. "Motherhood doesn't leave much room for takeout." Lily beamed. "Mommy's pancakes are the best." Ethan's lips curved faintly. "I'll take your word for it." When Amara placed a plate before him, he hesitated before picking up his fork. The first bite drew a surprised expression, followed by a reluctant chuckle. Kid might be right. For a moment, laughter filled the small kitchen, the kind of laughter that softened sharp edges, that reminded Ethan of something he thought he'd lost forever. After breakfast, Ethan rose, muttering about leaving. But when he reached the door, thunder cracked outside, the storm rolling in heavy and unforgiving. Amara glanced at the rain, then at him, then at Lily, who looked up with pleading eyes. "You can stay until it clears," Amara said finally. "No sense walking into that." Ethan's resistance wavered. His fingers tightened on the doorknob, then slowly released. "Just until the storm passes." He sat back down, this time less like a guest and more like someone slowly realizing he didn't have to keep running. When life gives you storms, do you shut people out, or let them in, even if it's risky? Tell us in the comments. And if you're still watching without subscribing, think about it. Why walk away from a story that's just beginning to open its heart to you? The rain poured harder, drumming against the windows. Lily nestled on the couch with a blanket, beckoning Ethan to sit beside her. Hesitant but yielding, he did. She leaned against his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world. Amara watched from the kitchen, arms folded, heart conflicted. She had fought for years to build a safe life for her daughter, one free of men who might break promises or bring chaos. But watching Ethan let Lily rest against him, his expression torn between pain and peace, something inside her whispered that perhaps this wasn't chaos. Perhaps it was the start of healing for all of them. The storm lingered into the next morning, sheets of rain tapping against the apartment windows like restless fingers. The sky outside was a dull gray, the kind that made time feel suspended. Amara brewed coffee in the small kitchen, its rich aroma filling the space, while Ethan sat at the table with Lily, who was drawing on scrap paper with crayons. He seemed almost out of place, like a shadow in her sunlit world, but Lily chatted freely, as though his presence was the most natural thing in the world. "This is you," Lily announced proudly, holding up a stick figure with dark hair. Next to it was a figure with long curls, Amara, and a small one with yellow scribbles for hair herself. "And this is us together." Ethan stared at the drawing, his throat tightening. Something about the childish innocence of being included in their little family made his chest ache. "Pretty good likeness," he managed, voice low. Amara placed a mug of coffee in front of him, her expression caught between amusement and caution. "Careful. She'll recruit you as part of the household before you know it." Ethan gave a hollow chuckle. "Wouldn't be the first time someone tried to make me fit somewhere I didn't belong." Amara paused at that, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean?" But before he could answer, Lily was tugging at his sleeve again, demanding he draw something too. He obliged awkwardly, his large hand gripping the crayon like it was foreign. The result was clumsy, almost embarrassing, but Lily clapped like he'd painted a masterpiece. Amara watched him quietly. The way he smiled, not fully, but enough. The way his guard dropped just slightly under Lily's adoration. She wondered what kind of life had left him so unaccustomed to acceptance. Later, when Lily was down for her nap, Amara found Ethan on the balcony, staring at the rain. His notebook lay open on the small table, pages covered in messy scrawl. "You write?" she asked, stepping closer. He stiffened, snapping the book shut. "Just thoughts." "Poems? Stories?" "Nothing worth reading." The defensiveness in his tone made her hesitate. But then she saw the way his knuckles whitened around the notebook, like it was the only thing anchoring him. "Can I ask you something?" she said gently. He glanced at her warily. "Depends." "Those men, the ones in the cafe, why were they after you?" The question hung heavy in the damp air. Ethan's jaw clenched, his silence saying more than words could. Finally he muttered, "I owed them. Money. More than I could pay." Amara frowned. "Gambling." He shook his head. "Worse. I trusted the wrong people. Thought I could get out clean, but you don't get out clean." She crossed her arms. "And now? You're just running." His laugh was bitter. "Running's all I've ever done." He didn't mean to tell her more. But something about the storm, about the coffee warming his hands, about her quiet persistence, it pulled words from him like threads unraveling. He told her about his younger brother, how they'd grown up bouncing between foster homes, how Ethan had always been the shield. How he'd made one bad deal to protect him, and the weight of it had never stopped crushing him. "I lost him," Ethan said finally, his voice breaking. "I thought I could keep him safe. But he's gone. And it's my fault." Amara's chest ached at the raw pain in his confession. She reached for his hand without thinking, her brown skin against his pale, calloused fingers. He flinched at the contact, but she didn't let go. "Carrying guilt doesn't mean you deserve punishment forever," she said softly. He shook his head violently. "No, you don't understand. If people get close to me, they get hurt. I can't let that happen again." "Then why did you let Lily hug you?" Amara asked, her voice sharp but not unkind. "Why are you sitting here in my home instead of disappearing again?" Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. That night, Lily woke from a bad dream, her cries piercing the apartment. Amara rushed to her room, finding her daughter tangled in blankets, tears streaming down her cheeks. "It was the bad men," Lily sobbed. "They came back." Amara soothed her, whispering comfort. But Ethan appeared in the doorway, his expression stricken. Without a word, he crouched beside the bed, his presence large but gentle. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. "You're safe. Nobody's gonna hurt you while I'm here." Lily sniffled, peeking up at him. "Promise." His voice cracked. "Promise." She clutched his hand tightly, finally settling back to sleep. Amara stood in the shadows, watching the scene with a storm of emotions she couldn't name. Later, she found him back on the balcony, his hands trembling as he lit a cigarette. He didn't look at her as she approached. "I shouldn't be here," he muttered. "She shouldn't trust me. You shouldn't trust me." "Maybe," Amara admitted. "But she does. And so do I, whether you like it or not." He turned to her then, his eyes wet with something raw. "Why? Why would you, after everything I told you?" "Because," she said firmly, "I know what it feels like to carry too much alone. And I won't let you drown, even if you're convinced you deserve to." The words hung between them, heavy, dangerous, true. If you were Amara, would you open your home and heart to someone with a past like Ethan's, or shut the door to protect yourself? Comment your truth below. And if you've been here for every act but haven't subscribed, maybe ask yourself why you keep taking without giving back. Hit subscribe, be part of the family that stays. In the quiet that followed, Ethan finally opened his notebook and slid it across the table. "Read," he whispered. Amara hesitated, then opened to the first page. The words inside weren't neat, they were jagged, messy, scrawled, but they were alive with pain and longing. Poems about loss, about guilt, about searching for light in endless dark. By the third page, her throat had tightened. By the fifth, tears blurred her vision. "These aren't nothing," she whispered. "These are pieces of you." He stared at her, stunned by the sincerity in her voice. For years, he had hidden behind walls of shame. Now, for the first time, someone wasn't recoiling from the truth of him. Amara closed the notebook carefully, as though holding something fragile. "Maybe you've been running because you're afraid of what happens when someone finally sees you. But Ethan, I see you." He swallowed hard, the storm in his chest raging louder than the one outside. And in that moment he knew, no matter how much he resisted, this woman and her daughter had already begun to undo him in ways he couldn't escape. And maybe he didn't want to. And though none of them admitted it, the storm outside had become the very thing binding them together. The week after the storm felt like a fragile dream. Days spilled one into another, filled with small joys, meals together, Lily's endless chatter, laughter echoing in corners that had long been silent. But dreams are delicate things, and reality has sharp teeth. It happened on a Thursday evening. Amara had just returned from work, the scent of takeout filling the apartment. Lily darted to Ethan as soon as she saw him, clutching a drawing she'd made at school. He crouched to admire it, his smile soft, his voice gentle. Amara paused at the door, watching. And for one dangerous heartbeat, she let herself imagine this was permanent. That he was theirs, and they were his. But then came the knock. Hard. Relentless. Ethan froze. "Who is that?" Amara asked, alarm prickling her voice. His face drained of color. "Don't answer." The knocking grew louder, fists pounding like thunder against the wood. Lily shrank back, eyes wide. "Ethan," Amara's voice trembled. "Who is it?" The answer came muffled but unmistakable. "Open up, O'Connor. We know you're in there." Ethan's past had found him. Chaos unfurled. Ethan bolted toward the door, pressing his back against it, his body the only barrier between the attackers and the fragile safety inside. Amara grabbed Lily, pulling her close, her heart racing. "Ethan, what do they want?" His voice was low, grim. "They want me. I'll go." "You're not opening that door." Amara hissed. "I can't let them drag you into this." Lily's small voice trembled. "Don't go." The pounding ceased, replaced by the hiss of a voice promising violence. "You've got one day, O'Connor. Pay up, or we take what matters most." Silence followed, heavier than any storm. Ethan slumped against the door, his chest heaving. Amara's arms tightened protectively around Lily. And in that silence, something inside Amara cracked. When Lily was tucked into bed later, Amara turned on him, her voice sharp with fear and fury. "You lied to me." "I told you enough," Ethan muttered. "Enough." Her laugh was bitter. "You dragged danger into my home, around my daughter, and you think that's enough?" His jaw tightened. "I never asked to stay." "No," she snapped, tears burning in her eyes. "But you did. And I let you. I let Lily get attached. I trusted you." He looked away. "That was your mistake." The words sliced through her. She recoiled like he'd struck her. "You think you're protecting us by pushing us away," she whispered. "You're just proving you were never man enough to stay." The air went still. Ethan's face hardened, but his eyes betrayed the pain her words inflicted. "Better you hate me now than watch me ruin your lives later," he said coldly. And with that, he grabbed his jacket, his notebook, and walked out. Amara sank onto the couch, her body trembling. She had faced storms, heartbreak, loneliness, but this felt different. This felt like loss. In the bedroom, Lily stirred, her small voice carrying into the silence. "Mommy? Where's Ethan?" Amara's throat closed. He's gone, baby." "Why?" She swallowed hard, forcing words past the lump in her throat. "Because sometimes people are too broken to stay." But as she tucked Lily back in, Amara couldn't silence the ache inside. Because despite the danger, despite the betrayal, she hadn't wanted him to go. And worse, Lily's tears whispered the truth Amara couldn't admit. They both needed him. Ethan walked through the night, the city's neon glow blurring around him. His notebook weighed heavy in his bag, each page a reminder of what he couldn't have. Her words replayed like knives. Never man enough to stay. She was right. He had tried to be something more, but every step toward her had been a mistake. He was poison, and now she saw it too. He ended up in a dingy bar, the kind where anonymity was currency. He drank, trying to drown the echo of Lily's voice begging him not to go. But no amount of whiskey silenced it. At one point, he opened his notebook, scrawling words with shaking hands. Better she hates me now. Better the kid forgets me. Better I disappear. But the page blurred as tears he refused to shed finally fell. Back in the apartment, Amara sat awake, staring at the door as though he might walk back through it. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind made her heart jolt with hope. But the hours stretched, and the silence mocked her. She thought of his laughter at the park, the way he steadied Lily on the swings, the tenderness in his eyes when he promised her daughter safety. She thought of the notebook he had finally let her read. And she hated herself for missing him already. The next morning, Lily padded into the kitchen, her hair tangled from sleep. She looked around, eyes searching. "Mommy, he didn't come back?" Amara knelt, pulling her daughter close. "No, sweetheart." Lily's lip trembled. "But he promised." Amara pressed her face into Lily's hair, tears stinging her eyes. "I know, baby. I know." Her daughter's whispered heartbreak shattered her more than his leaving had. Because Ethan hadn't just broken her trust, he had broken Lily's too. That evening, Amara found herself staring at Ethan's empty chair at the table, the space where his coffee mug had sat, where his guarded smile had begun to soften. She had sworn she would never let a man disappoint her or her daughter again. And yet, here she was. She wanted to hate him. But underneath the anger, fear, and betrayal, one truth pulsed stubbornly: she loved him. And that terrified her most of all. Ethan sat in a cheap motel room, the air stale, the silence suffocating. His phone buzzed with a message from a number he recognized. One of the men who had banged on the door. "Time's running out, O'Connor." He stared at it, then hurled the phone against the wall. For the first time in years, he had tasted something like family, like belonging. And now it was gone, not because they had pushed him away, but because he had chosen to leave. Because he was a coward. He pressed his hands over his face, the image of Amara's eyes burning in his memory. He wanted to go back. He wanted to fight. But the fear, the certainty that he would only destroy them, kept him paralyzed. And in that paralysis he wept. The days after Ethan left were heavy, each hour dragging like chains. Amara went through the motions: work, meals, bedtime routines, but everything felt hollow. The apartment was quieter, emptier. Even Lily, usually a storm of chatter and imagination, grew subdued. One night, Amara found her daughter at the window, staring out at the street with wide, expectant eyes. "Sweetheart, what are you doing?" "Waiting," Lily whispered. "For what?" Her little voice cracked. "For Ethan to come back." Amara's chest constricted. She knelt, pulling Lily close. "Baby, sometimes people don't come back." Lily looked up, her blonde hair falling into her tear-streaked face. "But he promised, Mommy. And promises mean something." Amara's throat tightened. She had taught her daughter that very lesson. And now, that truth cut like a blade. That night, after Lily was asleep, Amara sat alone on the couch, clutching a mug of tea gone cold. The quiet pressed in, suffocating. She thought of Ethan's notebook, His words about searching for light in endless dark. Maybe you've been running because you're afraid of what happens when someone finally sees you. She had seen him. And for a brief, fragile time, he had let himself be seen. But then he had run anyway. Anger simmered beneath her grief. How dare he make Lily believe? How dare he make me believe? And yet, deeper still, there was longing. Because despite everything, her heart whispered the same truth her daughter had spoken. She wanted him to come back. Across the city, Ethan sat in the dim light of a motel room, empty bottles littering the floor. His notebook lay open on the bed, but the pages remained blank. He had tried to write, to spill the poison inside him, but every word tasted like ash. Because words didn't matter if he wasn't brave enough to live them. The memory of Lily's small hand in his haunted him. Her wide eyes, filled with trust he didn't deserve. And Amara, her voice steady, strong, telling him she saw him when no one else ever had. He pressed his hands to his face, groaning. You fool. Leaving had been easier in the moment. Cowardice often was. But every hour that passed, the weight of his choice grew heavier, until it crushed him. He thought of going back. But fear coiled in his gut. What if Amara slammed the door in his face? What if Lily looked at him with disappointment instead of trust? But worse, what if he stayed away forever, and lost the only chance at belonging he'd ever had? The next day, Amara was late picking Lily up from school. She rushed through the gates, only to find her daughter sitting on the curb, arms folded, scowling. You forgot me. Amara crouched, breathless. I'm so sorry, baby. Work kept me late. Lily's blue eyes narrowed. Ethan wouldn't have forgotten. The words pierced deeper than any knife. Amara swallowed hard, pulling Lily into her arms. You're right. And I'm sorry. I'll do better. Lily sighed into her shoulder, small arms clutching tightly. I just miss him. I know, Amara whispered, tears burning. Me too. That night, Amara stood in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. Her brown skin glowed under the harsh light, but the tiredness in her eyes betrayed her. You're stronger than this, she told herself. You don't need him. But the lie cracked before it even left her lips. Because strength didn't mean shutting people out. And need wasn't weakness, it was human. Her fists clenched against the sink. For so long, she had sworn never to let anyone hurt her or Lily again. But maybe keeping her heart locked away had been its own kind of prison. Maybe the bravest choice wasn't walking away. Maybe it was daring to love again. At the same time, Ethan found himself back at the park where Lily had played. He sat on the same swing, chains creaking under his weight, the playground empty under the fading sunset. He remembered Lily's laughter as he pushed her higher. Amara's smile, bright and unguarded. For the first time, the memory didn't just ache. It cold. He pulled out his notebook, flipping to a blank page. His hand trembled as he wrote. If I keep running, I'll lose them. If I go back, I might lose them anyway. But maybe the point isn't winning or losing. Maybe it's choosing to stay long enough to try. The words stared back at him, raw and undeniable. He closed the notebook and stood, heart pounding. It was time. Back at the apartment, Amara was tucking Lily into bed when a soft knock came at the door. Her body stiffened. For a moment, fear gripped her. It could be the men again. But when she opened the door, her breath caught. Ethan stood there, rain dripping from his hair, notebook clutched in his hand like an offering. His eyes were hollow with exhaustion but burning with something else, something fierce, desperate, real. Amara's first instinct was to slam the door. Her second was to throw herself into his arms. Instead, she froze, torn between anger and longing. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I made a choice," he said hoarsely. "To stop running. To fight for something that matters. To fight for you. For her." Tears welled in Amara's eyes, but anger sharpened her voice. "You think you can just walk back in after breaking us?" "No," he said quickly. "I know I don't deserve it. But I'm here anyway. Because I can't. I can't live with the thought of never trying." Silence stretched. The only sound was the rain. From behind her, Lily's small voice piped up, sleepy but certain, "Mommy, let him in." Amara turned, startled. Lily stood in the hallway, clutching her blanket, her eyes wide and pleading. Ethan's gaze broke, tears spilling freely as he whispered, "Please." Amara's heart pounded. This was the choice. Pride or vulnerability. Fear or love. She took a shaky breath, stepped aside, and let him in. The three of them sat together in the dim light, the storm outside mirroring the storm within. Ethan placed his notebook on the table, sliding it toward Amara. "I wrote something," he murmured. "Not for me. For you. For her." Amara opened the book, reading his latest entry aloud. "I've lived my life believing I was nothing but damage. But then I met two people who showed me I could be more. If they'll have me, I want to stay. Not as a guest. Not as a ghost. As family." Her hands trembled as she closed the book. Lily climbed into Ethan's lap without hesitation, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "You already are." Ethan's breath shuddered. His arms closed around her, clinging like she was the only thing anchoring him to this world. Amara watched, her heart breaking and healing all at once. Slowly, she reached out, her hand covering his. It was not forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. The next morning, the city woke beneath a calm blue sky. The storm had passed, but inside Amara's apartment, the air still carried the tremor of what had nearly been lost. Amara stirred early, making breakfast as she often did, but her hands trembled as she cracked eggs into the pan. She wasn't sure how to move forward. Ethan was here again, his notebook on the table, his presence filling the small space, but the hurt of his leaving lingered. When she turned, she found him already awake, sitting at the table with Lily perched beside him. He was showing her how to fold a piece of scrap paper into a clumsy origami bird. Lily giggled, delighted with the crooked creation, and Ethan's smile softened. The sight made Amara's throat tighten. He belonged here, whether she admitted it or not. "Good morning," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze with quiet intensity. "Morning." Their eyes lingered, words unsaid vibrating in the space between them. That afternoon, Amara had errands to run downtown. Lily insisted on coming, and to Amara's surprise, Ethan offered to join them. "I won't get in the way," he said. I'd like to be there." Amara hesitated but nodded. Part of her feared bringing him back into the rhythm of her daily life, but another part, the braver part, wanted to see what it would feel like. So the three of them walked together through the streets, Lily's small hand swinging between theirs. To onlookers, they looked like any family. And to Amara, for fleeting moments, it felt true. They stopped at a cafe for lunch, the kind of place with steaming bowls of soup and chipped ceramic mugs. It wasn't the same restaurant where everything had begun, but the hum of conversation, The clink of silverware, the scent of food, it all echoed that night. Amara felt the memory tug at her as they sat by the window. She watched Lily slurp her soup happily, then glanced at Ethan. His gaze was distant, fixed on the door as though expecting danger to walk through at any second. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. He hesitated, then nodded. "Just déjà vu." Amara's lips curved faintly. "Me too. But danger doesn't vanish just because we wish it to." Halfway through the meal, the door swung open. Two men stepped inside, their voices loud, their presence sharp enough to slice the air. Amara's heart plummeted. She recognized them, the same men from the restaurant that night. Ethan stiffened instantly, his hand clenching into a fist under the table. "Stay calm," he murmured, though his own pulse raced. The men hadn't spotted them yet. But Ethan knew it was only a matter of time. He had run from this moment long enough. And now, with Amara and Lily beside him, he realized there was no more running. He stood slowly. "Ethan," Amara hissed, panic sparking in her eyes. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done a long time ago," he said quietly. The men noticed then, their eyes narrowing, recognition sparking. One smirked, ugly and cruel. "O'Connor. Knew you wouldn't crawl far." Ethan stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "This ends here." The cafe hushed, all eyes turning. Amara pulled Lily close, her heart hammering, but she couldn't look away. "Either you pay what you owe," one of the men sneered, or his eyes flicked to Amara and Lily. "You know the price." Something inside Ethan snapped. "You don't touch them," he growled. "Ever." And for the first time in years, he didn't sound like a man drowning in guilt. He sounded like a man ready to fight. The confrontation didn't last long. Others in the cafe, emboldened by Ethan's stand, stepped in, voices rising against the intruders. Someone called the police. The men, realizing they had lost their power here, cursed and stormed out. Ethan stood shaking, adrenaline coursing through him. His gaze flicked to Amara, terrified she would see only the danger he brought. But instead she saw him. Not the broken man who had run, but the man who had finally chosen to stand. Back at the apartment, the silence was heavy but not hostile. Lily had fallen asleep in the car, exhausted by the drama, and Amara tucked her into bed before returning to the living room. Ethan was there, staring out the window, his shoulders taut. "You should tell me to leave," he said without turning. "For good this time. It would be safer." Amara's voice was steady. "I should. But I won't." He turned then, eyes wide with disbelief. "You stood up for us," she said softly. "You could have run again, but you didn't. That matters." He shook his head, tears glinting. "I'm still the same broken man." "No," she countered, stepping closer. "You're a man who's learning how to stay. That's all I've ever wanted, for someone to choose us, even when it's hard." Her words sank deep, breaking the last of his defenses. His voice cracked. "I'm so damn scared." Amara's hand reached for his, firm and unyielding. "So am I. But maybe we don't have to be scared alone." The distance between them closed, slowly, painfully, until her forehead rested against his. His breath shuddered, hers caught, and for a long moment, the world outside ceased to exist. Then gently, she pressed her lips to his. It wasn't a fiery kiss, it was fragile, trembling, full of grief and longing and hope. But it was real. And when they broke apart, Ethan's eyes were wet, his smile small but truer than any before. Later that night, he tucked Lily's blanket around her as she slept, whispering, "I'm not going anywhere, kiddo. Not this time." She stirred, murmuring through dreams, "Promise." His voice caught. "Promise." And for the first time, he believed he could keep it. Weeks later, life found a new rhythm. Ethan found work at a local repair shop, steady and honest. Amara adjusted to sharing her space, her routines, her heart. Lily, radiant with joy, introduced him to everyone as our Ethan. There were still shadows, moments when guilt clawed at him, moments when fear whispered he would ruin it all. But each time, Amara's hand in his, Lily's laughter in the air, reminded him of his choice. He had chosen them. And they had chosen him. One evening, as the three of them sat at the park, watching the sunset paint the sky in fire and gold, Lily piped up, "Mommy? Ethan? We're like a storybook now." Amara chuckled. "What do you mean, baby?" "You know," Lily said seriously, "the kind where people save each other, and then they live together forever." Ethan's throat tightened. He glanced at Amara, whose eyes shimmered with the same unspoken truth. "Yeah," he whispered. "Something like that." And as the last light faded, Ethan realized the restaurant hadn't been the night his story ended. It had been the night it began.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.